Hello, my creative family. How are you today? I feel blessed to be, I feel blessed to be here with you today and to be with these amazing women today. So I want to get into it because time will move fast. So before we start, I want to share a quote that my lawyer said, and I thought it was so profound and moving that light today. And it said, anything you lose by speaking your truth is not a loss, it's an alignment. Yeah. So let's speak our truth. So today, ladies, before I start, I want to just recognize you and say that you have all impacted my life. And when we think about culture and currency, you've all deposited greatly to this culture. And a lot of times, Hip Hop 50, and it's 50 years of hip hop, I'm doing panels, and often I'm the only woman on the panel. And it seems so unfair sometimes because just as you're here, there's so many women who have contributed greatly to our culture, just like men. But often we're hidden figures. So today I just want to shine the light and share some of your greatness with the audience. Thank you. Thank you. So it's been 50 years of hip hop, right? Since Cindy and Kool Herc had that party. How do you feel about the music and fashion? That's what I want to start for any or everyone. How do you feel about the music and fashion and what it's done for the culture since '73?
Well, I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind is, well, music and fashion always go together, but it's all self-expression. It's all culture. It's all how we want the world to see us, whether you're speaking it or wanting to, creatively show it visually. It's
Self-expression?
It's all self-expression. It's all art.
I think it's evolved immensely. I think people are coming to who we are, demanding our respect. The part of turning into currency is an ongoing process, but the fact that fashion is continuously evolving, more of individuals making the statement for fashion rather than brands or the Gucci's and the Pradas, and all that type. It's more of an individual statement with fashion. I think that's a great evolution that we're going through with music and fashion.
I feel like that experiencing it, the self-expression and specifically the resistance in it, that is continuing to evolve, but most importantly, that has been monetized, and it was free. Our self-expression, our resistance.
When we started.
Yeah, and now that it's been monetized, it shifted a lot. And it changes how we speak and how, and the courage that we once had. I feel like, people are not as courageous as they used to be, and because they are scared.
You think they're scared because of the monetization,
Because this was a way for us to earn a living. We went through self-expression and resistance, and that was the first wave, right? It always stayed with us, and then the world understood that that you could profit from this. And when we learned that, wow, I feel really loud, but when we learned that we could actually, this was saving our lives, expressing ourselves, and then we're making money, and we're in these rooms, then we had to change oftentimes how much we were going to express ourselves, to be okay, to get the financing, to be able to be in those rooms. And to me, that's been the major shift. And just to remember that, that party was about buying school clothes. It was about surviving, right? And here we are still surviving. And I don't know how, it's a lot to unpack, but that's, to be really short about it.
I'll touch upon it from the consumer and then the business standpoint. Being a 73 baby, it was a way for Gen X, right, to have a voice, right? We were the voiceless. We were coming from working class backgrounds. Many of us lived in urban centers and communities, Black and brown communities living side by side, experiencing, cutbacks in school, not being seen, not being heard. So fashion became a platform. We became almost like walking billboards. And what we wore represented our belief systems, right? Our customs, our traditions. Growing up, our parents made sure to really hammer in our head what it meant to have an appearance and how that appearance is read by how clean and how pressed we were, right? And wearing our Sunday best. From a business standpoint, many entrepreneurs, including you, gave us options, right? All we knew were the commercialized American brands and European brands that really seemed far and out of reach. I remember growing up and watching Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And that was a television show that gave us an inside look at what having wealth would give you, right? Fashion is just one component to being able to kind of brag about, quote unquote, what you have, or you faked it till you made it, right? We had brands that specifically spoke to us in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, i.e. April Walker with Walker Wear, Carl Kanai, Cross Colors, et cetera. And all of a sudden, we felt we mattered because you understood us, you were able to provide clothing that really fit us, right? And we were absolutely seen. A lot has changed in the business component, and I think it's an interesting time now because we have Gen Z rediscovering, right, and tracing back those roots. It's a complicated story as to how we broke into the business, what happened, and where we are today. I think it's important to understand that there was no blueprint. And so in, telling the story and being humble, we also have to, in many ways, forgive ourselves for making certain mistakes that were inevitable, right? As consumers, as designers, as business leaders, as those trying to do the right thing, and to Shara's point, to survive. Now those who are getting into the business, should absolutely take note of how that story evolved and turn the page.
I think I wanted to add about the monetization, and it does change a lot. When you start to monetize something that's your passion, I remember the first time, I just get inspiration from everywhere, and I remember the first time I was designing, creating a brand, and they were like, where are your tears? What's your inspiration? What designers did you pull from? And I was like, what? What? That's not how it's ever happened for me. And I think that when you're so passionate about what you do and it comes naturally from what you've always done your entire life, you have to continue to find ways to still love it, because everything begins to change when monetization of it comes.
Which is great, because I want to ask you, Elena, speaking of loving it, you just did, I know about a vision you had for many moons that came to fruition, and it was the Fresh, Fly, and Fabulous exhibit at FIT for hip hop's 50th that commemorated a wonderful exhibit of fresh, fly, and fabulous clothes that we created. I would like to know about that vision, how it manifested, how much time it took, and how it came to fruition, and was it what you saw?
So I've been a journalist for over 30 years, even though I've been moving in the academic space for 21. And so much of my career, I am indebted to all of you who allowed me to share and tell your stories in the platforms that I worked in and the spaces that I did. With my first book, the idea was then, and that was well over 10 years ago,
And what was that book?
Freestyling How Hip Hop Changed the Fashion Industry, which is the historical narrative of basically connecting the dots and how did we infiltrate fashion. And obviously now I'm in a different place. I'm at FIT full time and looking ahead and seeing Hip Hop 50 in the calendar many years ahead. This was a project that was pitched 4 years prior to Hip Hop 50.
Wow.
So there is a lot of planning involved, and for me, it was an exhibition, a book, and a conference. And it worked out very well. Many of the contacts that I already had, my vision was simply to make sure that we centered the narrative around the original creators. And while European and other American designers have profited and have been inspired by hip hop, that was not a major focal point of the conversation, but the focal point would be around the Black and brown people that created and fueled the industry to this day. So it was very intentional. My co-curator is Asian and African American. I hired a exhibition designer, a very dear friend of ours, Courtney Sloan, who I've worked with as a journalist, and had her execute the vision. I made sure that I didn't really ask, I was really expecting. And thankfully I kept pushing, until I heard no, but I wasn't expecting no. I made sure that we bought diverse mannequins that we didn't own in the museum, that we made sure we had for this exhibition. So those are kind of the little details of the curation process, is being intentional about what is the objective and what do I need and what tools I had. And thankfully, I had the support of the museum at FIT, who understood that this had to be an authentic story. And so it came from, being someone that was in the culture and relying on all of you to help me give you a platform to share your space and your objects within, the museum area.
It was wonderful. Thank you. So PNB Nation, I think of Please No Bacon. I think of Proud Nubian Sisters. I think of Post No Bills. I think of so many things, but PNB Nation is a trailblazer in terms of streetwear or urban fashion or dope clothing. It is art on clothing, social commentary, social statements, and it was very necessary in the 80s when it started. Brew, Zulu, West. There is Bluster, Sumchoy,
Yeah.
and then there's you, Shara. Inside joke, you guys.
Yeah.
But literally, you've done everything from sales to marketing. Now you have Hoop 88 Dreams, right? The Hoop Master. Let's talk about, I would love to know, being that PNB Nation was so important and integral to the culture, it was an intersection of hip hop, fashion, and social statements that were needed for us to express to the world. How did you fall into working with PNB, A? And B, what was it like being a woman there, because you were one of the only women, and then in a male-dominated business and industry?
I'd like to start by saying that my brother came to a barbecue, and he was really excited. He had some T-shirts on him, and he just recently gave a T-shirt to KRS-One. And I was like, let me see what you gave him, you know? And he showed me the T-shirt. And the T-shirt was, the front graphic was, hello, my name is Michael Stewart, Philip Pennell, and Eleanor Bumpers. And Michael Stewart was arrested for writing graffiti and died in police custody. Philip Pennell was a black teenager, and he was shot in the back with his hands up. And he was just playing around and with a group of kids, and they thought that these black kids were a threat. And the police were called. And the third person was Eleanor Bumpers. And she was a black elderly woman that was going to be evicted. She didn't allow them to come in, and they knocked down her door and shot her in the chest. And that took my breath away, to have that messaging on a T-shirt at that time. And we were all up in arms every time someone was being killed, not just someone, but a person of color, a black person. And at that point, I was just like, so what are you doing? What's going on? Like, how can I help you? How can we get this out? And it awoke the little activist that I had inside me. And it gave me purpose. So fashion, I always liked fashion, you know, and we were always taught to dress not what not to look like what you've been through. But this was the polar extreme. I'm dressing like what I've been through. And we need to let people know. And that was my bullhorn. And he said, okay, I'll let you, come on board. And so I started doing the marketing. And I just kind of blew them away. And they were like, okay, okay, let's have you enter sales. And that was really important because then I was engaging both on the marketing and sales side, the gatekeepers at the time. It would be the buyers, it would be the editors, and that's how I met Elena, the stylist, Sybil, and then my sisters here, Kiki and yourself, and, and it was difficult as a woman. I took the brand to 11.5 million. They made me a partner. And I didn't have any formal training, right? So this is, again, going back to the essence of hip hop, the culture, self-expression, and resistance for me, And we were known for provocative, statements and politically charged statements. And it made people pause and to think, like, what are we doing? How are we doing it? And who are we doing it for? And so that was just such a great experience because I was educating.
Passion plus purpose equals profit.
And it did. And it did. Was it easy? No, it wasn't easy because, there's an educational component to it, to people who want to profit.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
The birth of hip-hop culture by Black and brown youth gave rise to flavor, to culture. Like, it gave rise to such a distinctive style that hip-hop fashion is now pop culture and recognized worldwide mainstream, right? But it often faces and has faced criticisms, stereotypes, and boxes that perpetuate and have perpetuated institutional racism, cultural expressions of the most marginalized people, right? Hip-hop style also, it exudes creativity, being individualistic, and just really doing it differently. And unfortunately, these qualities are often known as excessive, ghetto, fabulous, whatever you want to call it. But then we see it on the runways in Paris and all of these things, right? For everyone or anyone that wants to answer this question, thinking about that and thinking about women, we've always been at the forefront of all movements. Undoubtedly, hip hop culture, just as Cindy was there, being the mastermind. And whether it's music, art, or fashion, it's built a foundation that's very strong and continues to be the gift that keeps on giving, right? Our culture, yet our legacies are often not endured when it comes to the monetization today and us being able to reflect those legacies and seeing us at the top, a lot of us, right? With women, there's been an enduring pattern throughout history to celebrate only a few, and the lack of acknowledgement often feels like a silent tool for erasure. I believe this trend persists because many still view hip hop as a predominantly male industry, a microcosm of the world, right? Like the world we live in society. Reflecting on your journeys in the spaces you've all occupied, do you think it's a good time for women entering streetwear or clenching their teeth, trying to sink their teeth into the tenets of hip hop right now versus when we started?
I think definitely for sure. It's a better time to get started because you don't have to fight as much, but you also have more responsibility, I feel like. I mean, we've always had responsibility, but because these doors are are opening a bit easier now, you have to really, I would like the younger ones to really be aware of what they're doing with those spaces and making sure that there is an authenticity, because I think often you see so many, like Kaz was talking about, there's artists and they want to just be in the light or whatever, and they take away from the realness of the culture and the stories that we really want to share that really can help. Our stories are what brings us all together, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I just want to add that I think it is a good time. It's a good time because it's not as many obstacles. And just this panel and us being here, I didn't see this. You know, I didn't. I just saw us working really hard, and I shared with Sybil. I was like, I saw her holding court, and I was like, you know, and then you know, left and held court where I was at. You know what I mean? Among men. You know. Now, today, you fast forward to 2023, and you know, we would ask you to collaborate, to create community. And Sybil and I, when we were listening to Kaz, and he said when, you know, those times when it was slow, his brothers picked him up, you know, and I see that in you, April, you know, and I appreciate that. So
My sister's keeper.
yeah, and so this forum, this conference, the education component, we were not formally trained. So I think it's a great time. It's a great time.
I would just like to add that, yeah, I think any time's a great time, and if it's your passion, and today is definitely right now. But I would just push for everyone to do their homework. You know, like don't try to skip the steps. The Instagram and Twitter and Facebook has us thinking you can jump in and just do a couple TikTok videos, but do your homework. Like really get educated, whether it's through school or through you know, training with people who have been there and done that. You know, even if they're not as cool as you think they are, they still have the knowledge of a lot of the obstacles you're still going to come up, you know, in front of you. So I would just say a lot of the young people, to me, don't do their homework. They just go with what they see or hear on TikTok. Everyone's an expert, you know, and nothing against it, you know, but everyone's not an expert, and everyone doesn't know, even though they watch a couple TikTok videos and they think they've mastered it. Do your homework. Know who the pioneers are. Know the Grandmaster Cast. Know who those people are that really, when there was no Instagram, none of that, were huge without the promotion. Like they were huge because of them. They pushed the culture forward. So that's what I would say. But yeah, it's a great time if it's your passion to do it. But it needs to be passion, not going after. Although this is culture, currency. I understand that, but money will come if it's something you love to do. You're going to fail at it. I don't care how good you are a business mind. Like we talk about the people that weren't business mind, but the people who were business mind and it wasn't their passion and they didn't know, you're going to fail at it, So you'll just have some money for a minute, but it's going to be fleeting, So that's what I would say. But any time's a good time if it's really what you want to do. It's in your heart, and to push, and always in the background should be about pushing the culture forward, pushing your people forward. I had said to Shar that when Grandmaster Cass said about the guys who pulled him up through the whole industry, that the whole time I was in it, through the 90s and early 2000s, and then when things started falling apart, women didn't pull other women in. Men have always done that. There's some guys that are huge to this day, where the guys used to go get the water back in the day. They become superstars. I could name a few, but I don't want to diminish, what they do, because their brothers pulled them through. Women, and the men didn't pull the women through. So we only could depend on the women to pull us through, and they didn't do that. A lot of people fell on hard times, and you would know who some of these people are if the women would have pulled them through, or people would have lended out a hand and respected what they had done for the culture. So I would just say, make sure you're always supporting your don't be afraid. There's enough out here for everybody. 4 billion people in this world, you know what I'm saying? So just don't ever be afraid that someone's going to take your sunshine, going to take your shine. What's meant for you is going to be for you. So just pull people with you. If we get stronger and bigger, there's really no stopping us. We won't even be having these type of conversations, that we're trying to pull ourselves in. It'll just be done. And that's the day I look forward to, that we don't have to say, nothing against black forums and black that, but we don't even have to say the word black or woman or man. We can just say we and did it. We did it. So, but I think it's a great time for anybody who wants to get in, because there's plenty of room and there's plenty of ideas. There's plenty of new things, plenty of reinventions,
To piggyback off of that, understanding the business, whatever business that you're getting into, whether it's on the apparel side or the retail side, and understanding the position that you want to play. So many of the stories that you hear about on the fashion is because the stories get told about who were the designers, right? That tends to be the face. But I can attest, having covered this market for so many years, in every one of those companies, there were key women that were holding those brands down. They were working in sales, they were working in marketing, they were working in PR, they were working in production. They may have not had the spotlight, they may not have been as glamorous. So it's really important to figure out and there were buyers, right, at retail stores that were instrumental in getting your brands to the end consumer. So it's really, really important to figure out what's the lane that you want to be in, and then learn as much as you can about how to effectively work in that space, and then start connecting the dots.
Yeah, and even assistants, people that I learned early to go through the assistant. I didn't go to try to, because you couldn't get in with the certain people. You went through the assistant. They had more knowledge and anything. So sometimes people care about, titles and all that. But the assistants were the ones that knew everything. They had the knowledge. They had and a lot of them have turned that over into currency.
That's
And
right.
they start out as assistants. So don't be afraid to just do your homework and know, what you should be doing.
Okay, I'm looking at the time clock. We got a few more minutes, so I'm going to try to get him in. Kiki, you've been in the game, and I've watched you blossom from, I kept hearing your name. There's this woman over at FUBU you need to meet, but we actually connected later in life on a self-care mission, right?
Yeah.
Wellness journey. But I want to ask you, you've been known as your favorite celebrity designer's favorite ghost designer. Really quickly, can you name a few of those names of some of
Yes.
them?
The latest Nicki Minaj collection, and I did the for
Nicki Minaj,
Beyonce, Jay, you
Beyonce,
know, I don't know,
Beyonce. We could
like
go on
Apple
and on.
Bottom. I mean, all of the brands that all
Think
the
of.
celebrity brands, because I started at FUBU, and then I began FUBU Ladies, and then everybody was just kind of starting to begin. They wanted to do women's as well, and you know, in the beginning, when people didn't really have they just had the idea, but you need a whole new infrastructure. Anywho, um, I launched a lot of the brands that were coming up.
Starting at FUBU, I noticed that during that time in the 90s, a lot of the brands, menswear brands, later started women's. And it looked like an offshoot of a men's brand that was just like, oh, here's something for women. But it wasn't. I think you did a great job of really carving out your space for FUBU Women's.
Yeah.
Did you have challenges there, or did you have your own lane? And I think your artistry has always been amazing. Like, you are so talented.
Yes,
You're wearing your stuff right now with your own resort line, you know? But like, literally, what was your process? And did you just have space to create? Or was it like, did you have challenges working with the men?
Everything was a challenge. Everything was a challenge, not just being the only woman, but in a creative space, trying to get your ideas. Like, oh, this is gonna be hot, you know. Like, you have to really kind of, you know, everything's a fight. But you know, I'm about that, so it was all good. Like, so yeah, I mean, I'm jumping on tables, like, no, you know, like, I've always just been very passionate about what my vision is, and it's always been so very clear that I couldn't see how anyone else couldn't see it. So I was not really trying to hear it. So, but when I was I was going to FIT, and I was also working at FUBU. Was still in Damon's house in Queens, and then I just said yes to everything because I was happy. I'm in New York. I'm a real fashion designer because I'm going to FIT. So someone also was like, "Oh, there's this woman, Sybil. She's uptown, and she wants to start her own line." I was like, "Yes to that." So I went over there. She wasn't really ready. I was telling her this story because I'm like, it's a long time ago, and you know, I was just a little. But she's really the inspiration behind, for me, for FUBU Ladies, because I had started. I was doing the men's collection, but for me, that was brand new. I had to learn it because I'm making prom dresses in high school and like club outfits, and I'm at FIT making gowns. And then I was going to school with one of the guys, with Jay, and I'm like really learning this urban market. And I was kind of mixing that and then assisting her with styling and seeing the things that she did and how she really took. I just watched her. We need military, so we're gonna go to the Army Navy store. We need like Carhartt suits were like what the people were just wearing because it's after work. You know what I mean? But you know, I remember on a Totals album cover shoot, she bought men's wife beaters, do we call them that anymore? And put the girls in it, and I just was like I learned so much, and that's for me. I went back to work. I'm like, we gotta do women. I see it. There's a vision, you know, like, so I'm mixing like everything, you know, from, you know, my girliness and what they were doing, and then the way that I was seeing how I can just take it all and make it cute. And
Right.
I just begged and begged, and they were like, fine, you could do a little something, Keek. And then, you know, then we made $25 million on the first thing in Magic.
Well, thank you. Thank you for standing on those tables and stomping your feet, but because it really showed women and it reflected women, and it didn't look like a men's line, but it was like, here's something for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you just created a perfect segue for Sybil. Sybil, I've known you forever.
Forever.
Okay, we have so many different intersections from Pittsburgh to Uptown Records to just our journey in fashion and us being sisters, Nelda. We could go on and on. But I have so much respect for you because you're a quiet giant and you're so humble. And I didn't even know about your engineering degree at University of Pittsburgh. So I want to say that for those that don't know, not only was she an amazing stylist and the in-house stylist at Uptown Records, working with Puffy and Andre Harrell, and this is way before a lot of people. She really is a trailblazer with styling. When you think about Mary J. Blige to Total to a lot of other images, we could go on and on. I have 3 minutes. I want to let her talk. My question to you, Sybil, is you actually, I can go on about your career, but you actually founded, came across Total somehow, and then actually were the one to get them signed and put together develop that whole look, which I think is such an iconic look because you brought them together as a unit, but they still had individual styles. How did you do that?
Well, quickly, I was Uptown's in-house stylist, their first in-house stylist. I did all their artists. It was kind of a new thing. And they came in one day to meet with Puffy and just seen my ability as the fashion person there. And they just came, they had a manager at the time. They came and whispered in my ear and said, you know, can you manage us? Can you take us? Because Image was the biggest leader at that time. I mean, nothing away from the music or anything, but if you didn't have your image right, it led. You know, that could make or break a group. And I said, sure. I didn't even know what managing was. I said, sure, I'll manage you. So we talked to their manager at that time. Her name was Kathy Dukes. And did a contract, and I became their manager, which I taught myself through. And when I met them and seen them, they really were three little me's, because I used to dress. You know, I used to style anytime I went to a job, I would style myself, look the part. And so, but there's three personalities that were kind of inside of me. There was one that was, Keisha was really sexy, like she liked to, you know, show parts of her body, so I incorporated that. Pam was more of an androgynous. She was the one that, you know, does the shoulder dance with Puffy for people who don't, and some of the young people might even know, you know, but that's Pam. So I did her, and I like to dress. I was kind of, my father raised me, and I don't want to say like a man, but I was raised to kick indoors, you know, so that's who I was. Like, didn't even think man, woman at that time. I would just push my way into the door. I'd be the only female in there like you, April, and I'm sitting at the conference table and let them kick me out. That's how I became so prominent in Uptown Records, because I just pushed myself in with Andre, Puffy, and they're like, okay, you can stay, you know, and yeah, you can handle that, and you do that, and you do that, and you do that. So I kind of demanded my respect and took it. So Pam was that. And then Kima, she was like my little model, and you know, and people always wanted me to model back in the day. I never really liked to do that, but that was my muse for that. So I had those three different personalities together, and it worked for them. They were able to. I always wanted to style people in things that they could live out, that were really them, even if they didn't even know it was them. Like I always used to say, the clothes don't make you, you make the clothes. You know, sometimes people would be scared to do stuff, to try. And I always wanted to push the envelope. I come from Midwest, so I didn't I wasn't from the urban world of, you know, Walker wears. I was introduced to that with you, April. You know, I was more from Midwest, which is a whole different, you know, I hope no one gets offended, but white trash is what I grew up in. You know, and I use that I love the way they dress. So those were my friends. I used that, and that's who Mary was. People don't know that, you know. That's how I came up with Mary's image, you know, mixed with the urban world. So that's what I did for people. I'd always like think about their personality. I wanted to get to know them. So I got to know Total live with me. They live with me in my brownstone in Union City. And I got to know them like they were my little daughters or little sisters, you know. And that's why they were so successful, because they were really three personalities of me and how I like the different ways I like to dress. And I, you know, put it on them and they could live it out. And it was strong. Actually, their first album, I took them to platinum status. Thank you, yeah. Talk about the industry is shady. Some things came along. I won't get specific, but they end up taking them from me.
Right.
I had plans. Like Andre asked me, what's your plans for Total? And I said, I am going to take them to Madonna status. And I would have, because that was in my passion, you know, and Madonna was who was it back then, you know. And, but things happened. I did a second shoot on them that I have pictures of, that things that Beyonce's are wearing now and J-Lo is wearing, and all the huge people that they trashed.
Right.
And then they did it in a different way. But I just think they would have been much bigger if they would let me push that image, push that envelope, you know.
Well, you, when I look at style and when I look at today's style, your cultural currency speaks to the world today. So thank you. And thank you all, ladies, for your contribution. Thank you.